the company is absolutely safe in the hands of Mr. K.V. Kamath, an able board, and Dr. Vishal Sikka.
Welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special news break. Now, this is a story that we have accessed from multiple sources. This is a story with three different sides. The differences have cropped up in the recent months and they continue. So the response so far that the founders have got, they feel, is not adequate or satisfactory. People are drawing parallels between what has happened at the House of Tartars and what seems to now be unfolding here. Would that be a fair parallel or a fair analogy to draw? And where do you see this headed?
Tell me, who has been paid 24 months compensation for any CFO, any management in India in all these years? I don't know anybody. I have not been paid. And I probably knew more seekers than anybody else.
Would it be fair to say that this is not so much about strategic differences, but this is largely board governance-related issues that the founders are raising?
Exactly. I don't think it's an issue between Sikka and the founders.
If you sit under a toddy tree and drink milk, people will think you are drinking toddy.
Kiran, since you're talking about going forward, it seems fairly evident that the founders are looking at the possibility of bringing in some changes at the board level. I would hazard a guess that they are unhappy with the board leadership.
There are requirements to expand the board in terms of a succession plan. So we will look at bringing people on board, expanding the board, and we will do it in a time-bound, in a time-bound way.
We live in a glass house. This is a good thing, because if we are living in a glass house, we cannot misbehave, which is good. Somebody is always looking at it.
Hello and welcome to the special coverage of the Infosys Divide. Infosys Chairman R Seshasayee has spoken out for the first time after CNBC TV 18 broke the story about differences between the board and the management, making an effort to quell the concerns that the Infosys board and the founders are at loggerheads. In a press conference call to address those concerns, the Infosys chairman said that there could be a battle only if there are conflicting objectives. However, in the case of Infosys, they went on to add, and I quote, "There is only a convergence of interest." Not only did he rule out a tussle with the founders, the Infosys board chairman also said that law firm Cyrill Amarchand has not been asked to mediate in any fight whatsoever, though he did say that the law firm will work with the tech giant to implement best governance practices in the company. R Seshasayee also addressed some of the contentious issues raised in the last few days. Talking about the severance pay made to former Chief Financial Officer Rajiv Bansal, the Infosys chairman said, and I quote again, "There will be no more Rajiv Bansals," adding that Infosys has now put a robust severance policy in place. He also spoke about the controversy around Infosys CEO Vishal Sikka's revised compensation and said that there was a resounding shareholder approval for Sikka's compensation. Listen in.
Vishal's compensation issue. I think this has been sufficiently been explained over time, several times over. But if you don't mind, I will repeat this again because firstly, I want to give the data points and then I will give you the process. The data points are that we had the revision, as you all know, that his compensation was raised to 11 million. But as we have already explained, the fixed component of that, the cash component of that came down from 5.08 to 4 million. The variable element went up and it had two components to it. One component was linked to the longevity of Vishal in the company, which you will all agree is extremely essential for the stability of the company. And it is normal practice, therefore, to have longevity-linked incentives, and that was one component of 2 million. And the rest was linked to the performance. And as compared to the earlier package, the performance-linked package, which went up, was tied to a very, very high level of targets. There was a trajectory, which we discussed and agreed, and this was a 2 to 3 month process. Severance pay of Rajiv Bansal. It must have consumed a phenomenal amount of newsprint in the last several months. But let me say that I think all that I've heard, all that we have listened to, read, we certainly think that there is a lot of validity and I'll come to that as to why I think so. Validity in all the observations made. The founders have made observations, they've given their comments, and I respect these comments. If you look at both the data points and the process and application of mind on that, the severance pay that was agreed to be paid at the time that he separated from us was 17.38 crores. That is a data point. What is actually paid was 5 point something. And that is because that this was stopped with effect from April 2016, suspended, and the reasons for that were explained. These are two data points. I think Mr. Murthy mentioned that there is a proverb that if you drink milk under a toddy tree, you'd still be, a palm tree, you'd still be mistaken for drinking toddy, and that's very correct. And therefore, when they connected the dots, it appeared that this money was paid because there was some silence money in it. So when the first anonymous whistleblower complaint was received, many companies that I know of do not look at anonymous complaints, but good practice, which is what this company has always followed, is to look at whistleblower complaints regardless of whether it's signed or anonymous. And when that came to our notice to the board, we immediately wrote back to the same mailbox saying that if you have any evidence of wrongdoing, could you identify a law firm to whom you can give this documentation and we'll pay for that? Let's conduct that. We didn't get any reply. We sent a reminder, there was no reply. And then we said that, no, we have to now do this ourselves. And there was a detailed investigation that was done, which, as you know, was put out in the website. And again, to repeat something that you already know, the investigation was done by an independent law firm, was overseen by a global law firm, was shadowed by our statutory auditors, and then we came to the conclusion that there was no intention to silence. The Panaya acquisition was done through a process. We got Deutsche Bank's valuation done, which is a third-party valuation, and within the band of the valuation that they gave, the price was determined. So there was no issue of skipping a process. And based on the process integrity, these accounts were prepared and certified. People coming up for retirement, we would need to have a succession planning. We have a succession planning, but we need to make sure that succession planning is not done arbitrarily in a manner that we get narrow focused with just one group representation. We need to distribute this. And to do all of that, we need the help of a firm of experts. And that is the reason why we said we will have Cyrill Amarchand Mangaldas to help us. This is not a law firm to mediate. I think some of you got it wrong. This is not about mediation between two parties who are fighting. To start with, I said the whole notion of a fight is wrong. We don't look at it as a fight. We look at it as, in some cases, a passionate expression, and we understand the passionate expression of comments. We'll take the substance of that, and we have to move on. But in doing so, we need to have not arbitrary, not narrow-focused kind of decisions being taken. It's in board composition or in governance practices, and that's precisely why Cyrill Amarchand Mangaldas had been appointed.
Okay, that is Chairman of the Infosys Board R Seshasayee going point by point and trying to address each of those concerns. Earlier today, before this press conference, Narayana Murthy insisted that his concerns about board governance still remain and that the board must address them properly. Murthy told CNBC TV 18, and I quote, "I have not withdrawn my concern. They have to be addressed properly by the board and full transparency should be displayed and people responsible for it should become accountable. The positive tweet by one of the directors is encouraging. 2 days back, Narayana Murthy broke his silence on camera for the first time. Speaking to Veer Sanghavi, he laid out his concerns and also made it clear that he has no issues with CEO Dr. Vishal Sikka, who, according to Murthy, is doing a good job.
It is not the management that concerns me. I think we are quite happy with Dr. Vishal Sikka. He's doing a good job. He's a very bright person. However, what concerns some of us, particularly the founders and senior former Infosians, is that there have been certain acts of governance that could have been better. The chairman said at the AGM that he had some highly confidential competitive information. But anybody who knows our industry can quickly come to the conclusion that there are so many people in the company, senior people, that have such competitive information that in Infosys itself we have had 2 CFOs who left before, and several other senior people who are on the board, senior vice presidents, etc., who had such competitive information, and we didn't pay any one of them. So therefore, it has led to some kind of confusion as to...
Let me put this bluntly. You're going to dance around the subject, but what the market is saying is that guy had the goods on you. He had damaging stuff on Infosys, and they had to pay him off.
Well, I hope it is not the case, but we are all judged by our actions. See, in Kannada there is a saying, if you sit under a toddy tree and drink milk, people will think you are drinking toddy. So therefore, it's very, very important for us not only to do the right thing, but also to be seen doing the right thing. I think that is the whole issue. If I had not received 1,800 emails from employees, from various investors, from the...
1,800?
Yeah, 1,800.
1,800 emails is what you've received?
Absolutely. About the severance pay, about some of the other governance issues, I would have had no worry. For example, when Mr. K.V. Kamath was the chairman of the company, there was not a single time when I even called him on any of Infosys issues. There was not a single time that he had to update me on any issues.
Okay, that is a very, very recent interview conducted 2 days back. Time to slip into a very quick break. Up next is an exclusive conversation with former Infosys veteran Mohandas Pai, who did not pull back his punches at all.